Today, I would like to talk about the casual microcomputer piracy that was so popular in the 1980s and how it was performed in most homes. I say piracy, but I do think that is such a strong word for what was actually going on. You see, I would like to cast your mind back, or imagine if you will, to the early to mid 1980s. Close your eyes if it will help you. It was a golden age of the microcomputer, and the future is home computing. Many parents gifted their children some form of microcomputer, and many an adult, young and old alike, would also purchase one thanks to their relatively cheap price. The most popular media format for these economical microcomputers was the trusty cassette tape, an extremely popular, almost throwaway form of cheap physical media that was vulnerable to wear and tear, that was also used for listening to and recording music. You could walk down your local street, walk into any store or outlet and buy blank cassette tapes to record onto. Tapes like this authentic 1980s specimen. It's like society made it all too easy. And just like the recording and gifting of musical mixtapes has gone down in time to the confines of nostalgic social history, so too, to a lesser extent, has recording microcomputer software. It's not so different. And the means to copy cassette tapes was pretty much there in most common households. Children would use their parents' hi-fi system to copy their latest games to lend or swap them with their friends at school. Adults too, probably using mostly the same methods, though they made legitimate backups or cluster a series of smaller programs onto one tape. Now, let's take a closer look at this authentic software vintage 1980s mixtape. Now, straight away we can see whoever made this is very organised and made a very organised software mixtape. You can see on side A, a list of games there, and next to the names are numbers. This is the tape location of the program. I will show you that later. But why copy one program onto a tape when they can hold a lot more? Of course you can copy one program, but you could actually put more on there, which is what this person has done. And you can see on side B there is a list of actual programs, so separated the programs from the games. Very organised. Again, number locations on the right there. Very nice. Now if we open this tape, let's get this tape out, and there we are. A wonderful Boots C15 computer cassette tape, specially designed for computers, longer play than your standard musical tape, but I find it intriguing because this is Boots. Now Boots is essentially a health and beauty and pharmacist shop. You wouldn't see anything like this in the shops currently, but back in the 80s they did, because lots of shops did. Wonderful. I will now demonstrate to you how people used to record these tapes on things like a hi-fi system in households. And here it is. A lovely but simple cassette stack from a hi-fi system. This is an Ariston model, probably from the mid-1990s, but you can get some beautiful looking cassette stacks from hi-fi systems, especially from the 80s, with wonderful LED display lights. Now the idea is to record from cassette A to cassette B. Cassette B is where you put the blank tape. Cassette A is a tape you want to record from. Now you will notice a noise reduction feature on this system. I have left that on. It seems to work okay. And there you can see the record volume dial. I've left that bang in the middle and it seems to work great. Now this tiny little counter here is the cassette deck B counter. The basic idea is it gives you the precise location of when you're first recording. Let me just reset that back to 0 there. When your first recording has finished, and then you can change your source tape and pick up from where you left off, and you know the precise location of the next program on your recording tape. Now on these systems, to directly record from deck A to deck B, you have to put it in what's called dubbing mode, which is this button here on this system. I know you can't quite see the writing clearly, but it's indicated by that green light there. There is also a turbo dubbing mode, indicated by this red light, but I find this only really works for music, recording it very fast. It doesn't quite work for data or programs, so I will switch it off. So that is essentially all the settings you need to know. Now let's put a tape in cassette A and record it. Let me just open it up. There we are. Now let me find a program to record. Let's have a look around here. Yes, Chucky Egg 2. Let's record this as our first program. If I could just get it in. There. Excellent. There. Now, we have our source tape, or the tape we want to record, in deck A, but the first thing we need to make sure is that it's fully rewound. It is. It's fully rewound. Excellent. And now all we have to do is put our recording tape into deck B. Let me just find one. And here we are. Now, as you can probably see, this tape has been recorded onto before, but it doesn't matter for this experiment. I would simply record over it. The way you can tell you can record onto a tape are these write protect notches here at the bottom of the tape. Unlike our source tape there, that will have the notches removed, revealing small cavities indicating that the tape is in fact write protected. So let's get on with recording our first program. There are no speakers connected to this device. We use these audio level indicators to tell us when the tape is recording, and when it is stopped, we just simply monitor the lights there. So we know that tape A has been fully rewound, and I know that tape B has also been fully rewound. So we press record on deck B first, followed by play on deck A. Now deck B is recording from deck A, and using these audio indicator lights here, we know when it starts. There you are. It is now recording the screeching data noises from deck A to deck B. We have no speakers attached, so we can't hear these wonderful sounds, but we don't need to. We just monitor this until it stops. And when it does, we can change tapes. And that looks like it has finished. The audio level indicators have stopped. We can stop deck B now, and the counter will also stop, and we can stop deck A now as it has finished. We just need to make a location of deck B's location counter, which is 91, so we know when the next program will start. So let's put the next program in. We eject tape A, take Chucky Egg 2 out, and let's put a new tape in, a new program, a new game. Let's see here. Chuckman. Let's put Chuckman in. A lovely little vintage maze game there. So we now know that the location for Chuckman will be at around 91, providing that the tape deck you're playing on does also have a counter on it as well. So now we just press record on deck B and play on deck A to record Chuckman, just as we did with Chucky Egg 2 before. And also, like before, we simply wait for these audio level indicator lights to show us that it is in fact recording data on to deck B. And they should light up any second now. There we are. We can see that it is in fact recording data onto deck B from around the tape location of 91. And we simply wait for these audio level indicator lights to stop flashing to tell us when it has in fact finished. And the indicator lights have stopped, so the recording has now finished. Let's stop deck B and deck A, Chuckman has now been copied, so you could copy more from this location, but for this example I'm just going to copy 2 games onto one cassette tape. So let's eject deck B, take out the tape, and let's test it out on an actual cassette deck. So we now have our recorded cassette in our cassette deck with the location counter reset to 0. Let's load it up on my Sinclair ZX Spectrum Plus. Load, enter. We have our blank loading screen, so we press play on the cassette deck. That counter looks like it's moving a bit too fast for my liking. Faster than our cassette hi-fi duplicator we used earlier. This doesn't look good. So it looks like my beautiful vintage Keyshow cassette deck has stopped working. I will try and fix it at some point. So I'm going to use my newer GPO cassette deck. GPO, a lovely little company that still make retro inspired items like this cassette deck. So let's try and load this up again. Load, speech marks, enter. And there is our blank screen, indicate we can press play on the cassette deck. Play. Oops. Play. There is no tape counter on this cassette deck, unfortunately. But for this example, with only 2 programs, we don't really need it. We just load the next program after this one has loaded. And it looks like it's loading okay. And there it is. Chuck 2 or Chucky Egg 2 is now loading. Excellent. And there it is, fully loaded. Let's test the next program. Play. Now, if this cassette deck did have a tape counter and I wanted to play the second program, that is Chuckman, in the future, I would simply fast forward the tape to location 91 and play from that location. But if you are playing your programs on a device that doesn't have a tape counter, it is quite hard to find programs. So I recommend just doing 1 program per side of the cassette tape. And there it is. Chuckman does seem to be loading successfully. I do apologise for this atrocious image the RF signal of the ZX Spectrum Plus is projecting. It looks like I will have to perform the composite mod on this device at some point in the future. And there you have it, 2 programs successfully copied onto one side of a writable cassette tape using a cassette stack from a standard hi-fi system, of which many of households would have had. And although it was technically piracy back then, I feel it was more a part of computing social history. Tape games were relatively cheap. People who copied games still bought lots of them, and of course they would want to buy their officially licensed releases of all their favourite games and programs. Sometimes it was just a case of lending games without actually lending your copy of the game, or to share with people who had never had or could never have the game in the first place. There was a brief time where some bigger releases tried to introduce copy protection, but it never really caught on. Take for instance the lens lock, a slim lens-like device that was small enough to fit in standard cassette tape cases. Games shipped with this form of protection would usually display a garbled image before the game started, and you would view it through this strange lens device to reveal the code that you would input into the system. This shipped with the original Elite game amongst a handful of others, but didn't get much further than that. It was a pain to calibrate for your TV and didn't work properly if you had a particularly big or small TV. They also broke and snapped frequently. But I digress. I do so hope you have enjoyed or learned something in what I have showed you. Perhaps you will make your own tape copies of your classic software in the future. Just note that if you do pursue to purchase your own twin cassette hi-fi stack, you get one with its own power outlet, as some stacks have to be powered by another member of that particular hi-fi stack. Goodbye.